She said it so softly I almost thought I imagined it. "Don't call me Mrs. Hale anymore." The words hung there, fragile but deliberate, the kind that made the air change shape around them. I'd only stopped by to drop off my friend's camera lens. A quick errand, nothing more. But she was standing in the doorway, barefoot, her hair still damp from a shower, wearing a loose cream blouse that looked too intimate for company. The house smelled like rain and something faintly floral, jasmine, maybe the kind of scent that lingers longer than it should. "Ethan," she said, smiling in that careful, polite way adults do when they're trying not to look surprised. "You didn't have to come all the way here." "I was nearby," I lied. "I wasn't nearby. I had taken a longer route on purpose." She took the lens from my hand, her fingers brushing mine for a second too long. Warm, soft, controlled, but not entirely. Inside, the living room was dim except for a single lamp by the couch. A book was open on the coffee table, her glasses beside it. I noticed her hand trembled slightly when she set the lens down. Maybe it was the cold from the rain. Or maybe not. "It's been a while since you've come around," she said, turning toward me. I shrugged. "Didn't think you'd notice." "I notice more than people think." She smiled again, but there was something tired in it, the kind of smile that knows too much. The same kind I remembered from years ago, when she'd drive us home from school, always listening quietly while her son and I filled the car with noise. Back then, she seemed untouchable, all composure and distance. But now, standing this close, there was a softness to her I hadn't seen before. I looked at her and saw a flicker, regret, maybe, or curiosity. Passed quickly, but I caught it. "Do you still take photos?" she asked. "Every day." She nodded slowly. "That's good. You were always observant." I wanted to tell her that it wasn't the camera that made me notice things. It was her. The way she touched her wrist when she was thinking. The way her voice softened when she said my name. The way silence settled comfortably around her, like it belonged there. But I didn't. Instead, I said, "You remember that?" She laughed quietly, the kind of laugh that starts deep in the throat. "I remember a lot of things." Her eyes drifted toward the window, where the rain tapped against the glass. For a moment, neither of us said anything. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the distant roll of thunder, her steady breathing. "You look the same," I said finally. She tilted her head, a hint of disbelief in her smile. "You don't have to flatter me." "It's not flattery if it's true." Something in her expression changed, just slightly, but enough. She crossed her arms, maybe to hide the way her fingers tensed. "I'm not Mrs. Hale anymore," she said, quieter this time. "It's just Anna." The sound of her name, her first name, felt heavier than it should. I opened my mouth to say something, but then, a sound. A door creaked at the end of the hallway. We both turned, the spell breaking just slightly. Her eyes met mine, startled, almost apologetic, as if we'd both been caught doing something that hadn't yet happened. She whispered, barely moving her lips, "You should probably go." But neither of us moved. Not yet. I didn't leave right away. She didn't tell me to again, either. The sound down the hall turned out to be nothing. Just the old house shifting with the rain. Still, the quiet that followed felt heavier now, like we were both pretending not to hear our own thoughts. Anna moved toward the kitchen. "Coffee?" she asked, though her voice had that uncertain edge, as if she wasn't sure if offering it was a good idea. "Yeah," I said. "Sure." She poured for both of us. Her hands moved slowly, carefully. I noticed a thin silver ring on her finger. Not the wedding band she used to wear. That one was gone. I leaned against the counter, watching her. I shouldn't have. But the way she moved, deliberate, self-contained, made it hard not to. Her blouse clung faintly at the shoulder where it had gotten damp from the rain, and I caught myself looking too long. She noticed. "You stare the same way you used to," she said lightly, handing me the mug. "Like you're trying to figure something out." I almost laughed. "Maybe I am." She looked up then, really looked, and for the first time neither of us looked away. The steam from the cups blurred the space between us, and her breath brushed against my neck when she reached for a napkin. I shouldn't be here, I said, though I didn't move. Probably not. She smiled faintly. But you are. There it was. The quiet acknowledgement we'd both been circling since the door opened. I took a sip of coffee, mostly to steady my hands. It was too hot, too bitter, but I didn't care. Anything to hide the trembling in my voice. Her wedding photos were gone from the wall. I remembered them. The ones that used to hang near the piano. Her in a pale blue dress, him beside her, stiff smile. Now the frames were empty, just pale outlines where the pictures had been. Divorced 2 years, she said, catching my glance. He left. New city, new wife. I didn't ask the rest. Her tone already said everything. The exhaustion, the acceptance. You ever get lonely? I asked quietly. Her eyes softened, then hardened just as quickly. Everyone does, she said. Some of us just hide it better. The rain outside thickened. The sound filled the silence between us, gentle and relentless. She set her mug down and brushed past me to grab a towel. Her shoulder grazed my arm barely, but it was enough to stop my breath for a second. I caught the faint scent of jasmine again, mixed with coffee and something warm I couldn't name. When she turned back, I was still standing close. Too close. Ethan, she said softly. You should. She didn't finish. Her fingers rested lightly on my sleeve. Just a touch, nothing more. But her hand stayed there, long enough to feel the heat of her skin through the fabric. Neither of us spoke. The world outside was gray and blurred, the storm washing out everything except this. The space between us, the tension, the quiet question hanging in her eyes. When I finally set my cup down beside hers, our hands brushed again. This time, neither of us pulled away. The storm outside hadn't stopped. It only deepened. A low hum against the windows, steady, intimate. The kind of rain that makes the world smaller, the air thicker. Anna stood near the kitchen counter, the faint light from above catching the gold strands in her hair. I watched her trace the rim of her coffee mug with her fingertip, slow, absent-minded. Every small movement seemed louder than the thunder. I wanted to say something, anything to break the silence. But then her phone buzzed on the counter between us. Her son's name lit up the screen. I froze. She looked at it, then at me, and for a moment neither of us moved. The sound of the vibration seemed to echo through the room. He's probably wondering where I am, I said, forcing a half smile. Her lips pressed together. He's out with friends tonight. Still, she didn't answer. She just turned the phone face down. The silence that followed was different. Not comfortable this time. Tense. Forbidden. I shouldn't make you uncomfortable, I said quietly. You don't, she replied too quickly, then looked away. It's just complicated. I nodded, though the word complicated felt too small for what was happening between us. She started to say something else but stopped, her voice catching in her throat. The air between us thickened again, filled with all the things we weren't saying. Then a sound. The front door latch clicked. Her eyes widened. We both turned sharply toward the hallway. Footsteps, quick, careless, shoes on the hardwood floor. Mom! It was her son's voice. My heart stuttered. She mouthed the word stay and hurried toward the door. I stepped back, pressing myself against the wall near the kitchen, out of sight. Hey! I heard her say, voice suddenly steady casual. You're early. Forgot my wallet, he said. Thought you were out. I was just making coffee. A pause. Footsteps shuffled closer. I could see his reflection faintly in the hallway mirror. Him looking around, her standing between us, blocking the view. After a few seconds, he grabbed something off the table. Got it. I'll be back later. The door shut again. Silence. When she turned back toward me, her shoulders dropped, relief flashing across her face. But underneath it, something else. Something raw. That was... I started. Too close, she said, finishing for me. Her hand was still on the doorframe, knuckles white. I stepped forward without thinking, reaching out. Not to pull her closer, just to steady her. But when my fingers brushed her arm, she didn't move away. Her breath caught. So did mine. For a second, everything slowed. Her heartbeat, the rain, the space between us. "Ethan," she whispered. "We can't." But her voice faltered. We were standing so close I could see the faint tremor in her lips, the rise and fall of her chest. The scent of her perfume mixed with the rain. My hand hovered near her face. Not touching, just there. Close enough that if she leaned forward even slightly, but she didn't. Instead, she turned her head away, closing her eyes, like she was trying to find the strength to stop something she didn't want to stop. When she looked back, her voice was barely a breath. "This can't happen," she said. But neither of us stepped back. The rain had stopped sometime after midnight, leaving the air heavy and electric. The house was quiet again, too quiet. Anna stood by the window, her back to me, looking out at the streetlights bleeding through the wet glass. The faint reflection of her face flickered in the window pane, thoughtful, unreadable. Neither of us had said much since her son left. Every word felt dangerous now. "I shouldn't have stayed," I said, breaking the silence. She didn't turn around. "You're still here, because you didn't ask me to leave." That made her glance over her shoulder, eyes catching mine. There was no anger in them, just a kind of restless confusion. "You think this is easy for me?" she said softly. I stepped closer, careful, slow. "It's not easy for me either." Her breath hitched, the smallest sound, but it cut through the stillness. I could see her hand gripping the edge of the curtain, knuckles pale. "Ethan," she whispered, "I'm old enough to know better." I smiled faintly, though my heart was pounding. "You don't feel old to me." She exhaled. A quiet, shaky laugh that sounded half like surrender. "You don't understand what this would mean, what people would say." "I don't care what they'd say. You should." But her voice cracked halfway through the sentence. I was standing close enough now to feel the warmth radiating from her. She turned fully toward me, and the room seemed smaller, the air denser. I could see every line of her face, every flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "Why are you here?" she asked, though her tone was softer this time, almost pleading. I swallowed. "Because I can't stop thinking about you." Her lips parted, no words, just breath. Her eyes darted to the floor, then back to mine. "That's not fair," she said. "Maybe not, but it's true." Something in her broke then. Not loudly, just quietly, like a dam cracking from the inside. She stepped closer, her hand brushing my chest as if by accident, but she didn't pull away. Her fingertips trembled against the fabric of my shirt. I caught her wrist gently, afraid she'd disappear if I wasn't careful. "Anna?" She looked up at the sound of her name, and I couldn't help it. I reached up, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. My hand lingered, fingers grazing her cheek. Her skin was warm, her breath uneven. For a long moment we didn't speak. Her eyes flicked to my mouth, then away. "You should go," she whispered, but she didn't move. "Say it like you mean it," I said quietly. Her lips trembled. "I can't." We stood there, hearts racing, silence thick between us. The whole world narrowing down to this impossible distance that neither of us could cross nor bear to keep. Then, from somewhere deep in the house, the faint sound of a door unlocking. She flinched. Our eyes met, the moment teetering, suspended, one breath away from something we couldn't undo. And just before either of us could speak, she whispered, barely audible, "Don't make me choose." The next morning, the storm was gone, but everything still felt damp. The air, the light, the space between us. I hadn't meant to come back. I told myself I wouldn't. But there I was, standing again on her porch, the scent of wet leaves clinging to my clothes, my pulse already unsteady before I even knocked. She opened the door before I could. "Ethan," she said quietly, not surprised, just resigned. I needed to talk. Her eyes flicked past me, toward the street, then back. "You shouldn't be here." "I know, but I think you want me to be." She didn't answer, just stepped aside to let me in. Her hair was pulled back this time, her expression guarded. There were faint shadows under her eyes, like she hadn't slept much. "I shouldn't have said what I did last night," she murmured. "Things got carried away." Is that what you think it was? Her lips parted, but before she could speak, her phone, the same one from last night, buzzed on the table. This time, she didn't turn it over fast enough. I saw the name flash across the screen. Her son. And below his name, a message preview. Mom, Ethan called me last night. He said he left something at our place. My stomach dropped. Her eyes flickered with panic as she grabbed the phone, locking it. You called him? She asked, voice sharp now, trembling at the edges. I hesitated, realizing how bad it sounded. I wanted to know if you were okay. After last night. You told him you were here? I didn't mean to. Her hand went to her forehead, her breath unsteady. God, Ethan. She turned away, pacing a few steps toward the window, her fingers twisting the edge of her sleeve. I could see her shoulders tighten, the way her jaw clenched. Fear, frustration, maybe both. He can't find out, she said finally. You don't understand what that would do to him. Or to me. I stepped closer, careful not to touch her yet. Then tell me what this is. Because pretending it doesn't exist doesn't make it go away. She turned sharply, eyes meeting mine. Not angry this time, just exposed. You think I don't feel it? Her voice broke halfway through the sentence. You think I don't wake up remembering the way you looked at me? The air between us shifted, charged, aching. She took a small step closer, almost against her will. Her hand brushed mine, and the contact sent a shock through both of us. I could feel her trembling. I can't stop thinking about you either, she whispered finally. But that doesn't make it right. Maybe it doesn't have to be right, I said. Maybe it just has to be real. She closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, something had changed. A quiet decision behind the fear. Tonight, she said softly, almost to herself, if you still feel this, come back tonight. And before I could answer, she stepped past me, brushing my shoulder, her voice barely holding steady. But after that, there's no going back. Evening came slower than usual. The air was warm again, heavy with the scent of rain-soaked earth, as if the storm had left something behind, something restless. I stood outside her house longer than I should have, watching the light flicker through the curtains. My chest ached with every second of hesitation. I wasn't sure if I was walking into a mistake or a truth, but maybe they were the same thing. When she opened the door, she didn't speak. She just looked at me, eyes searching mine as if trying to read what I'd already decided. You came, she said at last. I told you I would. She stepped aside, and I walked in. The house felt different, quieter, darker, as if even the air was waiting. There was music playing softly somewhere, slow and wordless. She wore a simple black dress, her hair loose now, falling just past her shoulders. Her bare feet moved soundlessly across the floor as she turned to face me. For a while, neither of us spoke. I've been thinking all day, she said finally, trying to talk myself out of this. Did it work? She shook her head, smiling faintly. A sad, knowing kind of smile. Not even close. I stepped closer, stopping just short of touching her. I could feel the warmth of her body, the tremor in her breath. My voice dropped to a whisper. Then don't. Her hand lifted, almost hesitantly, resting against my chest. I could feel her pulse through her fingertips. Quick, uncertain, alive. This isn't simple, she whispered. It's never been simple. I don't want simple. Her eyes closed for a moment, as if steadying herself, and when she opened them again, something had shifted, the hesitation replaced by quiet resolve. She reached up, brushing her thumb along my jaw. The touch was light, almost reverent. You have no idea what you're doing to me. Then show me, I said softly. Her breath caught. For a heartbeat, we just stood there, the distance between us impossibly small, the air too heavy to breathe. The world outside could have fallen away, and I don't think either of us would have noticed. She leaned forward, not enough to close the gap, just enough to make it unbearable. I could feel the warmth of her breath near my mouth, her voice trembling when she finally spoke. If we cross this line, she whispered, there's no going back. I know. And you're sure? I nodded, barely. Are you? Her eyes searched mine for a long moment. Fear, longing, everything tangled together. And then, slowly, she let out a shaky breath. Her forehead rested against mine. That single touch, so quiet, so deliberate, said everything words couldn't. We didn't need to move closer. The choice was already made in the silence between us. When she finally spoke again, her voice was no louder than a sigh. Then stay, she said, and for the first time neither of us pulled away. Morning light crept softly through the curtains, spilling gold over the quiet room. The storm had passed for good this time, leaving the air clear and still. Anna sat by the window, her knees drawn up slightly, a mug in her hands. Her hair was messy from sleep, her face calm, though her eyes, when they met mine, carried the weight of something new. Not fear, not uncertainty, something closer to peace. Neither of us spoke for a while. We didn't need to. The silence felt different now, not tense, not hesitant, just real. When I finally moved toward her, she didn't flinch or look away. She just smiled, small, quiet, and said, "You're still here. I told you I would be," I murmured. She set her mug down and reached out her hand, her fingers finding mine without a word. The warmth of her skin grounded me, made everything outside this small moment feel distant. The judgment, the worry, the rules we'd both lived by. "I thought I'd regret this," she said after a while. "But I don't." "Why would you?" She laughed softly, tired, but honest. "Because that's what people like me are supposed to do. Regret, overthink, make sure no one ever sees us want something that doesn't make sense." I squeezed her hand gently. "Then maybe it doesn't have to make sense." She looked at me for a long moment, her expression softening. "You make it sound simple. Maybe it is." Her gaze drifted to the window, where the world outside looked washed clean, streets glistening, trees dripping. She exhaled slowly, the kind of breath you take when you've finally decided to stop fighting yourself. "Ethan," she said quietly, "I spent so long being someone else's idea of who I should be. A wife, a mother, a teacher. You're the first person who's just seen me." The honesty in her voice hit something deep inside me. I didn't answer right away. I just reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, my thumb brushing lightly against her cheek. She leaned into the touch, her eyes closing for a moment, trusting, open. When she looked back up, I leaned forward and pressed my forehead to hers. The same quiet closeness from the night before, but now softer, unhurried. "Whatever happens next," I whispered, "we'll figure it out." She smiled at that, really smiled this time, and rested her head against my shoulder. We sat like that, watching the light shift across the room, saying nothing more. Outside, a bird started singing somewhere in the distance. The world had begun again, but we didn't rush to join it. Her hand tightened around mine. "I don't care what anyone says," she murmured. "You're here. That's enough." And for the first time, I believed her. Sparkles, did you enjoy the story? Speech Balloon, what kind of stories would you like to hear next?